Hello everyone, I'm Darren with VibeTheNook.com, and today we're going to take a look at a game called EOE Eve of Extinction, which released for the PlayStation 2 all the way back in 2002. And since then, this game has never seen any kind of remake, remaster, or re-release of any kind at all. If you want to play the game, you kind of have to find the original PS2 disc. And back when this was released, it actually didn't review all that well at the time. It got like a lot of 6 out of 10s. And over the years, it kind of seems like most of the internet has forgotten that this game even exists. The PS2 is known for having a massive library with literally thousands of games released for it. With so many games on one platform, it's inevitable that a few of them would become sort of lost in the shuffle and become hidden gems. And after playing through it, I really think that Eve of Extinction is one of those hidden gems on the PlayStation 2. EOE Eve of Extinction throws the player right into the middle of the story. Josh and his girlfriend Eliel are both employees of Wisdom Corporation. They learn of the company's nefarious intentions and are taken captive. Eliel is turned into a weapon called Legacy, and Josh is taken prisoner. Together, they must escape and find a way to return Eliel back to normal. The plot is sort of bland, but has some interesting twists to it. Josh and Eliel barely have any personality at all, and the little personality that is there is just as bland as the plot. The most interesting character is this guy named Raven, who's one of the bad guy's henchmen, and his whole thing just ultimately doesn't go anywhere. The game's development was clearly focused much more on gameplay than it was on the story. The graphics are actually fairly impressive for the time, and the cutscenes have a very cinematic feel to them. The soundtrack is sort of stereotypical for the early 2000s. It's mostly just fast electronic-based synth rock. The overall presentation is clearly intended to mimic that of a Hollywood action movie at the time. There are some cutscenes with QuickTime events, but they give you a decent amount of time to react to these. And if you do miss one, there's usually something bad that will happen in the cutscene, and it will cause Josh to take a little bit of damage when you regain control of him. At its core, the game is a weapon and combo based 3D beat 'em up. Each level is a fairly large environment filled with agents of Wisdom Corp, and every level is basically a process of beating up bad guys until a story thing happens. The controls are basic, but they do get the job done. You have 2 attack buttons, a jump, and an action button. If you don't like where these are set by default, you are able to change them in the options menu. You can also change your weapons at any point in time by using the L1 and R1 buttons. You can also block with the L2 button, which will also lock onto the nearest enemy that Josh is facing. Since you're always blocking while you're locked on, it also restricts Josh's movements. And this makes the lock-on ability feel completely useless if you're fighting any more than like 2 or 3 enemies at once, which actually happens a lot. The game's most glaring weak point is the severe lack of camera control. If you press the R2 button, the camera will center behind Josh. This is the only sort of camera control available. It isn't so bad when you first start playing, but once you get to the first boss, it becomes a real issue. When the fight begins, he will disappear into a shadow. You're not able to damage him while he's like this, so you'll have to destroy the chandelier that's hanging from the ceiling. This is much easier said than done. First, you'll have to use the raw jump ability to get up to the second level. Then, you'll have to jump towards the chandelier and hit it with your weapon. Since you don't have any sort of vertical camera control, it can be really difficult to judge where you need to be standing to make these jumps. And the boss is constantly jumping out of the floor to attack you while you're trying to do this. It doesn't matter where you stand, there just isn't a place where the camera gives you a good view of this room. This is something that actually makes the game feel really dated. It was fairly common at the time for games to not have a whole lot of camera control, and it was just as annoying back then as it is now. Each boss has their own legacy weapon that they fight you with, and when you beat a boss, you gain access to their weapon. Each weapon has its own unique ability that can be used with the action button. These will be things like the rod giving you a much higher jump, and the snake sword acting like a hookshot. Sometimes you'll need to combine these abilities to progress through a level. When you start a new level, the first thing that you'll usually do is collect the lay seeds for the weapon that you got from the previous boss. These lay seeds will then be infused with the weapon and allow you to use its legacy drive. These are special attacks that can be activated by clicking the R3 button. Each weapon has its own unique legacy drive, and there are times when these are used to progress through a level. As long as you have enough concentration, you're also able to use them in combat to damage the enemies around you. When you use a weapon to attack enemies enough, it will level up. Each weapon levels up on its own, and when a weapon levels up, it will do more damage and be able to do longer combos. Since you're able to change weapons at any time, it's pretty easy to string several combos together. Each weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses, and as you play, it really doesn't take long to figure out which weapons combine for the most effective combos. Clearing the game's story will unlock New Game Plus. This will allow you to play through the game again with all your weapons from the very beginning, and they will still be powered up from your previous playthrough. You will also start with a new weapon that you can only get from finishing the story. This actually gives the game a pretty decent amount of replay value. It's actually a lot of fun to go through the game again, leveling up your weapons more so that you can do bigger and bigger combos. Our final score for this game is going to be 7.5 out of 10. It really isn't as bad as the reviews at the time made it out to be. Yeah, the story's not great, but the gameplay is solid and it still holds up. I found this game on eBay for around 15 bucks and it took me about 8 hours to play through it. So if you're able to get your hands on a copy, this really is not a bad way to spend your weekend. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please let us know by giving it a thumbs up and tell us about it in the comment section down below. That sort of thing really helps the channel grow. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and also check out vibethenook.com for more gaming related content. Also take a look at all of our social media pages, and I will leave links to all of that in the description box. Thank you again for watching. I hope to see you next time.